Okay, so this is episode number 230. It is my good fortune to bring Robert Keebler, CPA, onto the program. Let me tell you a little bit about him before we start the show. Robert S. Keebler, CPA, PFS, MST, AEP, distinguished, is a partner with Keebler and Associates, LLP, and is a 2007 recipient of the prestigious Accredited Estate Planners Award from the National Association of Estate Planners and Counsels. He has been named by CPA Magazine as one of the top 100 most influential practitioners in the United States and one of the top 40 tax advisors to know during a recession. His practice includes family wealth transfer and preservation planning, charitable giving, retirement distribution planning, and estate administration. Mr. Keebler frequently represents clients before the National Office of the Internal Revenue Service in the private letter ruling process and in estate, gift, and income tax rulings, or income tax examinations and appeals. And he has received more than 250 favorable private letter rulings, including several key rulings of first impression. He is the author of over 100 articles and columns, and is the editor, author, and co-author of many books on wealth transfer and taxation. And so I could keep going on with this bio here, Mr. Keebler, but this is pretty darn impressive. Thank you for being a guest on Sound Retirement Radio this morning.
Glad to be here, Jason.
You know, I want to let our community know the way that this relationship came to be is, as they can imagine, as a financial advisor, I'm always staying on top of changes that are happening, especially when it comes to the tax code. And Robert Keebler is one of the people that I follow closely. There's Mr. Keebler, I don't know if you know this or not, but there's an estate planning attorney here in my community that has actually done some work with you regarding private letter rulings. And so he's the one that turned me on to the work that you're doing. But today I wanted to have you on as a guest to talk about the Secure Act, specifically as it pertains to your expertise as a CPA. And so I want to start with the first question is, after the Secure Bill, at what age are you required to take required minimum distributions?
The new law says age 72. So the old law was that April 1st following when you turn 70 and a half. Now it's April 1st following when you turn 72. So arguably they pushed it out 18 months.
18 months, okay. And how did post-mortem distributions work before the Secure Bill?
Before the Secure Bill, if I died and I left my IRA payable to our children, they would be able to take that money out over their life expectancy. So that can be a very long time. If you leave that to a 30-year-old, they're going to have over 40 years to take the money out of your IRA. So a person with a 40-year life expectancy, the math's kind of simple. If I had $400,000, we divide by 40, and we take out $10,000. Then the next year we divide by 39, 38. You can see it takes forever to get all the money out of the IRA. So that we used to call that the stretch IRA, and that would be the primary planning technique for anyone with more than a couple $100,000 in their IRA. They would be very careful to talk to their children that, hey, you don't have to take all this money out right away. You can stretch it out over a long period of time. Because, Jason, you can imagine by stretching it out, all that growth is tax deferred, but more importantly, your tax rate will be lower. Mm-hmm. Meaning, if I only add $5,000 or $10,000 to my income, it's not really going to affect my tax rate very much. But if I had to add $30,000 or $40,000 to my income in 1 year because my dad died, that would be a big deal. And that would, so we like to stretch it out for as long as possible.
Under the old rules, that's what we would do. And just so people know, if they already have a stretch IRA, say that they inherited an account back in 2018, they still get to play under the stretch rules, correct?
Oh, exactly. I mean, there's a little modification, but how it's going to affect the beneficiary who's already in place is not at all. You don't really have to worry about that. What you have to worry about is what happens next.
Yeah. So that brings me...
when you die, then the new law does affect that, and then you end up with a 10-year rule.
Yeah, so that's what I wanted to ask you. So what are the new rules for distributions after the Secure Bill?
Well, that depends who you are, okay? If you are what's called an eligible designated beneficiary, which would be my wife, my little brother who's less than 10 years younger than me, a disabled or chronically ill child or friend or nephew or niece, or my own child under age 21, then what would happen is you actually get to use your life expectancy or your modified life expectancy. So for certain groups of people, they're going to end up with a longer payout than for other groups. And that's okay. That's definitely okay. The big thing there is for if somebody listening has a disabled child or grandchild, you definitely want to talk to your estate planning lawyer and the CPA that does your work, your financial advisor. Try to put together, relook at a plan to take care of that child or grandchild, because the new law allows that stretch treatment for people in those situations, and that's a big deal. And you'd want to make sure you took advantage of that.
Okay. Now, and my understanding is the age of majority. So when you talked about kids under the age of 21, they get some opportunities to stretch it out until the age of majority. Is that right? So once they reach the age of majority, then they have to use the 10-year rule going forward?
Well, of course, the tax law can't be simple. They can't say age 18 or age 21. They use the words age of majority. But then when you look further, when you look under the hood, if you're still in school, they allow you to continue that deferral, life expectancy distributions, until you actually reach age 26. So if somebody was in a PhD program or law school or medical school, they wouldn't have to start taking the distributions until they hit 26.
Okay. Let me ask you just kind of big picture as we're kind of diving into the finer points here. How big of a deal is this Secure Act really for most people?
It's a pretty big deal for anyone with one or two children with over a couple $100,000 in their IRA.
Mm-hmm. And why do you say that?
Well, let's say that, Jason, you had one child and you died, and there was $500,000 in your IRA. You'd have to that your child, let's say your daughter, she would have to take that out over a 10-year period of time, and that's a lot of income coming from the IRA onto she and her husband's return or her return, and in that instance, it would be taxed at a much higher rate than if you took it out over a 20 or 30-year period of time. That's really what this is about.
I heard somebody say that Secure Act stands for setting every community up to pay more money in taxes. What do you think?
I think that's a little bit of a stretch. There's some good things in the Secure Act. There's the fact that a group of people in similar businesses could share the expenses of putting together a pension plan. Age 72 is definitely an improvement over age 70. So there are some good things going on here in the Secure Bill, but this change definitely affects people who have worked hard and saved a lot of money